Hello, this is Debra Cohen, a story and a song. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about a global reset for the world, their moral compass, and how we can establish peace in this new world. Let me begin by, we need to look at the root in the U.S. first, the United States where I am. The term Judeo-Christian originated in the United States in the 1930s as a way to unite the country's three main faiths: Judaism, Catholicism, and Protestantism. It was used to counter anti-Semitism and anti-Catholicism, and to contrast Western values with fascism. So this may be a shock for a lot of Americans who don't know or have lost touch with the term Judeo-Christian values. My proposal in this podcast is to let's get familiar with these founding fathers' terms that we, the people today, should know if we're going to make a successful democracy in this country. We need to be educated with the facts about our own origins. And then the hope is to spread this piece of democracy, this brand of democracy, not the brand today in 2025, but the intentions of our founding fathers and how we can get back to peace in the world today. If this interests you, I encourage you to find a quiet place to listen. And for the next 30-ish minutes after this message, I will share some interesting facts with you, the people. Hello, this is A Story and a Song with Debra Cohen, sharing music from the 80s new wave genre to music for TV, film, and movies, as well as praise music suitable for Jewish and Christian soft rock. I share the story behind the recording of each song, as well as wisdom teachings from rabbinic sages and health topics for better senior living in the land of Florida. Please share this podcast and help it grow. Thank you. DebraCohenMusic.com. And again, this is Debra Cohen, and we're going to take a dive into the 7 Noahide Laws, which have been recently reestablished by the Nascent Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. If you're not familiar with this nascent, or Nascent, however you say it, Sanhedrin, I remind you that it was written to President Trump on February 12th, 2025. And in it, which I shared in last week's podcast, are the proposals for our country and our world to get back to the Noahide Laws, which were given to all nations at Mount Sinai. There are 7 out of the 10 commandments that were given at that time. 7 commandments for all the nations and 3 more for the Jews. So we all have a basis to follow these laws if we believe there is a creator. Now, we can split hairs and talk about who the creator is, but hopefully those that are listening understand, generally speaking, there is one God. Our country, the United States, was founded on monotheism, one God, however you believe God to be. So let's dig into the term Judeo-Christian values, because in order to understand this letter from the Sanhedrin in 2025, which again, if you don't know what it is, you can go to last week's podcast. I think that was February 16th, 2025. Look for my podcast, A Story and a Song, and you can find the details of this letter to President Trump from the Sanhedrin. So this is part 2. We need, in order to establish or reestablish a moral compass in the world, I need to start first where I live in the United States, because the term Judeo-Christian values was embraced by our founding fathers in the concept of democracy back then. When the Constitution of the United States says, "We the people," in a democracy, it makes the assumption that we the people know what Judeo-Christian values are. And I bet that at least half of you listening have no idea, or maybe you think it's extinct or whatever. So let's look at this realistically, try to have an open mind as we dive in. The term Judeo-Christian was used to define America's role in the world and to rally Americans behind the fight for democracy and freedom. Now, right there, some of you will be saying, wait a minute, Judeo-Christian is a term for democracy for the world? Well, let's dig in. I hope you're interested. It was also used to justify the defense of the First Amendment, which prevents the government from interfering with religious practices. And again, that church versus state terminology was perverted, just like the word Zionist today is perverted by the haters of this concept, Judeo-Christian. They changed the definition and turned Zionism today into an evil description of occupiers and colonialists, when actually the biblical definition of a Zionism is somebody that believes that Israel has the right to exist based on these principles, Judeo-Christian. Okay. The term Judeo-Christian became part of American civil religion in the 1940s. It has been used by many political leaders, including Franklin D. Roosevelt and Lyndon B. Johnson. In recent years, the phrase has been associated with American conservatism. For example, President Donald Trump used the term in one of his speeches in 2017. Now, the term Judeo-Christian has been used in other contexts as well, including to refer to earlier followers of Jesus Christ who opposed Paul the Apostle. Now, if that doesn't blow your socks off, for the Christians that are listening, I would immediately, if I were a Christian, want to explore, what's this about? Judeo-Christian was used for the early followers of Jesus who opposed Paul the Apostle. So you can see that this term takes multiple understandings as it was birthed. But in general terms, I'm trying to reestablish what the term Judeo-Christian, excuse me, I get excited and I just blah, 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 blah. Judeo-Christian values. I have to remember not to get excited and talk real fast because then my words get all scrambled. Okay, so let me get a grip on myself. All right. To refer to a value system common to Jews and Christians. So anybody listening who's a Jew and a Christian, try to understand what we're trying to establish and get to where the letter from the Sanhedrin was addressed and sent to President Trump in 2025. Okay. It first appeared in print on July 11th, 1939, in a book review by the English writer George Orwell. So that is something that you could explore if you want to do more research in that time frame. It was described in 1941, the idea that Judeo-Christian ethics underpin American politics, law, and morals, has been part of the American civil religion since the 1940s. So let me just leave it there. Get your thinking cap on. Start thinking about this. And we're going to fast forward to the birth of the country of the United States, where the people understood what Judeo-Christian meant. And now let's define what Judeo-Christian is in terms of the Sanhedrin, who want to reestablish the 7 Noahide Laws. And again, if you're looking on Google for the Noahide Laws, you're going to find multi definitions of what the Noahide Laws are. I've heard this term before, and I just kind of let it go because I wasn't interested in them. I thought it was a sect, S-E-C-T, some people that didn't want to follow the 613 commandments of the Jews, so they came up with the 7 easiest. That's what I used to think, but that's not the case. If you believe, now here is where your faith comes in. If you have faith to believe, we all believe in something. You got to think about, okay, at Mount Sinai, when God gave the 10 commandments to the Jews, God, our Creator, also gave the Noahide laws for all the nations, including the Jews, because they have to add 3 more and then ended up with 613. Okay, so let's look at what they are. And I'm going to, while I'm looking for them in my papers, I'm going to share a commercial with you.
His wondrous works, glory in his kadosh name. Let the hearts of those that seek Adonai rejoice, rejoice. Seek Adonai and his strength, seek his face continually. Remember his marvelous works that he has done, his wonders and the judgments of his mouth, the mishpatim of his mouth, the mishpatim of his mouth. O you Zerah of Israel, his Eved, children of Yaakov, his chosen ones. He is Adonai Elohim, his mishpatim are in all the earth. His mishpatim are in all the earth. Ha! Rejoice, 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 rejoice. Be mindful always of his covenant, the word that he commanded to 1,000 generations, generations. Even of the writ that he made with Abraham, and of his oath to Yitzhak, and has confirmed the same to Yaakov for a Torah, to Yisrael an everlasting brit, to Yisrael an everlasting brit, to Yisrael an everlasting brit. Rejoice, rejoice.
And again, this is Debra Cohen, and we're talking about reestablishing peace in the world. And we have to start somewhere. So we talked about Judeo-Christian values in the United States. in how people that believe, this is Jews and Christians, Catholics, whatever variety you are, as we human beings, we like to make our own little, what do you call them? Cliques. It used to be called cliques. So you've got all these little cliques, but they're under the umbrella of Judeo-Christian, and these values were intended to be honored by the people to our Creator, who gave these laws, the Noahide Laws we're talking about, at Mount Sinai when the Jews were given the 10 Commandments. Now, if you haven't heard about this, then I encourage you to continue to listen and share this with your rabbi and pastor and ask them to look into the Sanhedrin. Let's see, I can give you the website because, again, as I warned you or told you, Google has more than one definition of the Noahide Laws. So you have to find the ones endorsed by the Sanhedrin, the Nascent Sanhedrin. The website is noahideacademy.org, and I'll spell that in case you're writing it down, I hope, and taking notes. Noahide, noahideacademy.org. All one word, noahideacademy.org. And there's a free course on their website that introduces you to the 7 biblical commandments for Noahides. So a synonym for Noahides would be everybody in the world who is not a Jew. So here again, you can look at this and think to yourself, okay, if you're saying, Debra, that a Jew is somebody that follows 613 commandments, then how come there's some Jews that are atheists? Well, by biblical definition, a Jew is somebody who has had a circumcision, a spiritual circumcision of the heart. So if you're not honoring God's word as a Jew, then you're not really a Jew. Oh, now I'm stepping on some toes here, but I'm just telling you, I'm the messenger. I'm not God. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. If you want to split hairs and get all upset, but you would follow the Noahide laws and be a non-Jew, which is the rest of the world. This idea of you're a Jew because your mother was a Jew. Well, guess what? Where does that leave Joseph and his 2 children, Manasseh and Ephraim, whose mother was an Egyptian? She wasn't a Jew, but the kids were Jewish. Okay? So it used to be by the father that you would determined that you were Jewish according to the Torah, but then it was flipped and it's the mother that tells if you're Jewish. That's the way human beings are. They keep changing the Bible under the umbrella of rabbinic Judaism. All right, so let's get back to the 7 biblical commandments for the Noahides. In response to this letter, I actually wrote to the Sanhedrin, which I discussed in last week's podcast, and I asked the rabbis for clarification on which Noahide laws are you referring to when you write to President Trump in 2025. And the rabbi answered me. Baruch Hashem is all I can say. So here we go. Clarity on what are the Noahide laws for all of the world to follow and live in peace. I'll read the whole letter. Dear Mrs. Cohen, thank you for your interest in the 7 Noahide laws. We appreciate you reaching out and expressing your desire to learn more about this important topic. The 7 Noahide laws are a set of divine commandments given to Noah and his descendants, and they apply to all humanity. Now, you can study into this and see how it also transfers to Mount Sinai when initially they were given to Noah for all humanity. They form a basic moral code that promotes a just and ethical society for all people. These laws are, now we're going to get into the meat of things. If you want to write these down, I'll say them slower, And I'll end the broadcast after I read these 7 laws because you'll have plenty to chew on after I share this information with you. And the goal is to teach the whole world what moral compass or what moral laws we all shall follow as a minimum. The Jews, again, have 613 laws, but the rest of the world has 7 basic laws to follow to live in peace with each other. 1. Prohibition of idolatry, worshiping anything other than the one God. 2. Prohibition of blasphemy. Cursing or disrespecting God is not allowed. 2. Let me get by 2, okay? And I'm going slow so you can write it down if you want. 3. Prohibition of murder. Taking innocent human life. 4. Prohibition of adultery and sexual immorality. Maintaining the sanctity of marriage and family, which rules out having premarital sex. At one time, this country abided by this commandment, but in this day and age, okay. 5. Prohibition of theft, respecting the property of others. 6. Prohibiting the eating of flesh from a live animal. We must treat all living creatures with respect. And 7. Courts of justice, implementing a system of law and order. So for the whole world, those are the 7 basic laws called Noahide, because they, in this teaching, believe that Noah was the first one to receive these laws to reestablish the world, reset globally the world after God flooded the universe, or flooded the earth, actually. All people were supposed to live by these 7 Noahide laws to regain peace in the world from all nations. God destroyed the earth because it was corrupt. The people did everything they wanted. They were selfish. It was no longer we the people. It was I, me, mine, me for myself. It's what I think. And these kind of people, which describe most people today, get offended by other cliques, and we start suing each other, and in the extreme, killing each other, slandering each other. The news becomes the same way, and that very much described our country in 2024 and the world. So the Sanhedrin has sent this letter again in summary to President Trump. The letter is dated February 12th. I'm just holding a copy. It's available online, or if you can't find it, you can go to my YouTube podcast channel at Jewish Rock Music and find last week's podcast, A Story and a Song, dated February 16th. And I think I have a link there where you can download this letter from the Nascent, the newly formed Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. All right, the world has not been working. It's become violent, where Hamas, which means violence in the Bible, Hamas actually has a voice in this world in negotiating with the nations to try to get the hostages which are being held in Gaza back. Since when do we negotiate with terrorists? And I ask you this, why? Why? has the United Nations and the EU not officially condemned Hamas as a terrorist group. This is step one. I just shared with you that we're not going to tolerate murder. All right, murder. Which one was that? Murder. Prohibition of murder. Number 3. Okay. So, if you want to know more about this, I ask you to do your part in the world, no matter what your belief system is, in order and in the interest of establishing world peace. We have to do a reset. God promised when he showed us the rainbow that he'd never flood the earth again. But, how can God be silent up there or down there or in there, whatever you think, and not do something about it? At least I have this unction to do something about it. And for those who have ears to hear, I ask you to get this book. I just released a newly revised second edition of Jewish Palestine, Arab Palestine, second edition. And it's updated in 2025 to help you to understand how you can do something, not just complain, bicker, and say there's no hope. But let's do something about it. We have the power to contact our politicians and write to them, call them, contact them, whoever they are, and demand that the UN and the EU officially condemn Hamas, who violates the third Noahide Law, officially condemns them as a terrorist organization. And then let's deal with Hamas the way God told us to do when Noah was in the earth. Okay, do something about it. If your pastor's not teaching you this stuff, get him this book and tell him to read it. If you're not hearing it in the synagogue, ask the rabbis to find out about I tried sharing this in my synagogue, and we have an oneg. The Christians call it potluck. After the service, I gently tried to introduce this letter at the table of people I was sitting at after the synagogue service. Oh, all kinds of responses. Some people snickered. Some people said, didn't the Sanhedrin expire like centuries ago? And or like, what do they want? Or I don't believe it. Or, you know what I'm saying? Oh, we can't do anything about it. Stop being a victim. Let's do something about it. Get the book. Let it supercharge you to do something about it. Let the whole world live in peace. Don't you want that for everybody? Well, if you're not doing something about it, then, you're kind of saying, okay, I think I like the world the way it is. We need to fix it. Okay, people? It's time to fix it. Thank you for listening. And if you're interested in hearing of my music, you can go to DebraCohenMusic.com. And if you want to find my books, you can go to DebraCohenBooks.org. Don't forget to spell Debra, Debra, because Google thinks my name is Deborah, just because that was the more popular way to spell it in the 50s. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you again next week right here on A Story and a Song.